So on top of these symbols and the direction and the energy direction that these symbols mean are meditated upon in groups, an occult ritual gravitates around this central theme of what we might call Metatron's cube, from a pure center, a pure place, sacrificing purity, creating this altar, removing the ego from a healthy ego within us that comes from pure truth, good works, working together with other people who are in a community who are doing this, but it begins with our own principles. And you can't see it, but production on the bottom is supposed to be orange. When I initially did this EPL symbol, it was done by hand, and then I went in years ago and used some online, not going to say software, it was available online, and just modified it to make it look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, because I had used some pretty crude paints and things like that. And so the wisdom didn't quite look like it was more purple. But here you have sacrifice. In the center, obviously, there's this clear, pure center or color. Then you have sacrifice, which is red. Sacrificing yourself, sacrificing others, the anti-principle aspects of it. On the backside, there's always a backside, right? And there's a place in between that flits in between, that does good works and balances it out with doing negative or bad, works, malevolent works, craft, intentionally. And, this was a heavy theme with Anton LaVey, and why the Satanic Church came to be with him justified. He'd see these men who acted like they were pillars of society out until 4 or 5 in the morning, frolicking and, doing the most derelict behavior. And then they would show up at church and do this completely role reversal, this Masonic hellfire, life, death cult that harnesses and embraces and utilizes a wider margin. And so when we're around these people as kids, we don't realize oftentimes who these people are that we're standing in front of, feeling so weird. That's Mr. blah blah blah, and he owns the ice cream store, and then we start to see that 1001 Club, that dichotomy, show its full face when it's too late and we're much older. We've been impacted by the demonic spiritual entities that are invited in by going about and doing these rituals, and they happen in society out in the open. So you have red, blue, red for sacrifice. First you start out with purity, the pure color, the pure expression. Many people look at this as white, but you have to be careful with that, because there's this masquerade with white and a false purification, a Luciferian witchcraft methodology, where, again, these principles are manipulated. It's about how we're seen. So if you're building up this energy and taking it from sacrificing the purity in little children, and then you reverse this and you go hand out ice cream cones to children, and the kids love you, there's this weird thing that Stephen King taps into with It and other writings that he's done, where it's like it becomes undeniable, So then you have expression. The anti-principle method is to mute your expression, to get you to be quiet, to take that ice cream from Mr. So-and-so for free as he winks at you and you feel weird and funny. And nothing may transpire beyond that, but in your dreams, You have these strange dreams about them, right? And you start to think that you're weird, and you don't understand how you are the agenda, how your soul is the agenda. It is the focal point. You're not just some stupid little kid like they try to regard you as. Your purity and your principles are nothing, right? Well, they're everything. They are the glue to the principle in our reality. And so blue, expression. And then wisdom, purple. You can come up with as many different color variants as you want, but I'm being very basic, and it's wisdom, And the backside of this is a physical wisdom, right? To physically become wise, that you have to know the world. You have to develop yourself sexually. You have to use that sexuality as a tool to survive and get forward. You're taught completely different ideologies than you would from if we were really raised with principles, and which we're not. I get into that in other videos where Delaware, of the first of the 13 states, Lord Delaware is from a war. And it says a lot that we began this country through war, and war has always been the central theme. Shavian, Charles Bernard Shaw, polemics, polemics meaning war at the root, a warring way. So you have the purple, the wisdom, and then you have green, community, the connection with nature, money being that strange color, to work in a subvert way in community, to be doing Psyops, to be doing occult rituals and craft on the anti-principle side. But that community of one, of who you are through purification, unfortunately is where we have to turn, because as soon as we start to collect with other people, we live in an environment, we live on grounds of blood and sacrifice and the most vile things that have been done. These occult practitioners abound. They're in the civic centers. They are what the civic centers are made of. The steps getting up to City Hall, the Masonic lodges, and how they're spaced out a certain distance and direction in this circular pathway in a procession to the library, to the theater, where the thespians do act out the things that are happening and make you laugh and make a mockery of it. And then that translates over to Hollywood and the things that are happening there. And there's a heavy theme going on there, let's just say. And then that leads into this bridge between production and ego, where you'll see that the ego no longer becomes the important thing. It's with these occulted, transgressed groups that think that they are in some sort of covert CIA Psyops program that makes them really unique and special. And when it gets down to it, they're conjuring spiritual entities. I think spirit is probably too much of a compliment. They're like these dead beings that worship death. And again, this is something Nathaniel Gillis gets into, and I highly recommend looking him up, where you have these people, this ritual that is being done to people to inseminate them with the seed from dead men, from corpses, mortician, mortify, where there is this shame-based Stockholm syndrome, where you have had the most vile things done to you that you completely block out what has occurred. Many of us are going through that. So you have this bridge between production and ego. And when in the ideal situation, if you were able to be pure, and that energy would resonate back into and generate back into a pure truth, you would display a healthy ego that would be in support of a community where that community, not a society, but a community where that community would know through the field, you could say through godly principles, what it must do in order to preserve itself, how many would be in a community, how those members would interact. And there becomes this natural holographic, I'm not going to say mimicking, but re-imaging, a mirror of what what is happening within. So as above, so below. That's what they use against us. That's how these clandestine groups laugh at us. That we are forced not to be the fake smile on our face, how we interact with each other as we're thinking one thing and doing another. As above, so below. We're not behaving the way that we feel because we are under assault. We're not happy about the way we're being regarded. We're not happy about the way we're being attacked. In fact, you could be around the most vile, evil person that is committing craft on you out in public, and because of this shaming process, you wouldn't be able to say, do, or imply a thing, or you would seem insane. That is what is really insane. So we're producing things that, through planned obsolescence, become complete crap. It is a temporary thing. We're not building structures that last forever, that are built in a specific location that is both, intuitively and innately signaled to us, given to us, communicated to us, and through us, a mathematics of precision and perfection is laid out. And again, we are hailing to this unifying godly ego where God is working through us, and there's this progeneration that occurs, and it goes on for generations and travels through families where there is a momentum building force that occurs there. And then you have, behold, this Metatron's cube in all its purity and perfection. So on one side, you have these kids who are being love bombed and spoiled out in public. And on the other side, you have adrenochrome harvesting, molestation, trafficking. So there's this huge dichotomy that exists there. But production is orange. You see the people wearing the jackets and the suits. You see production and the production line being represented with orange, and how oddly that is displayed with prisoners that are out there doing work in public, being displayed with all their shame, wearing those orange jumpsuits. Many would assume at first that they're just wearing those orange jumpsuits to be seen. Then it gets into this ego and the expression yellow, gold, this shiny expression of ego in balance, in unity, in grace. And then all these other sub-principles are offshoots of these colors and combinations of those colors. And that's why the flag is being used, fag. The flag is being used as another anti-principle impurifying tool, mechanism to identify color that we see in nature, the color that we see around us that displays the uniqueness and the authenticity as a vile thing that is based around sexuality. I'm not going to say that something should ever come into development where you call it something and it becomes an abomination against God. Because personally, I believe what happens when you live through this purification, the last thing you're thinking about is sex. The last thing you're identifying yourself, your soul with, is as a sexual persuasion. as a sexual identity. We have an identity in purity and through the pure truth that has absolutely nothing to do with the sexual identity. And that is what we need to get back to, and stave away from and get away from what happens when these numbers get out of hand. How do we have our cake and eat it too? We shouldn't be eating the cake in the first place. What's the cake made of? You're having, you have your bleached flour, you have your this, you have your that, your sugar cane, your compartmentalized foods, eating compartmentalized foods that only taste better on the tongue because they are abhorring the completeness, even in your nutrition with a nutritional value. And once you start using whole foods, you're taking in one heck of a lot of fiber instead of eating that cake and it's void and it's made of bleached flour. Once you're using whole foods, it becomes a food again. It's no longer a treat. It's no longer an indulgence. So the fundamental principles of what it gets back to. And even more so, there's a meditation that you can do where you have, this purification within you. You're sitting within it. You're sitting within the Merkaba, and off to your right is that red sphere of sacrifice spinning. You're visualizing it. You're visualizing the balance from purity of that red sphere spinning and what that means. When you sacrifice yourself, not sacrificing yourself on a battlefield or your life for no reason at all, but sacrificing your time, your time with the children, your time in community, your time in, now it really comes down to building your sacrifice and building up that internal self, because you are 100% being hunted by the society at large on every level, every arm of this defunct, corrupt government system that started out with Delaware in the U.S. and has moved on like this vile serpent. And up to your upper left is that blue sphere, and up to your upper right, as you're sitting within the Merkaba and spinning this field, spinning it out and dilating it out into the world, and picturing the world and encompassing the world with this energies, encompassing the solar system, encompassing not you, but the energy is working through you. God is working through you. You are calling on the name of God through this purification process. You are knowing God by becoming pure, by purifying yourself. To the upper right, you have that purple sphere. And down to the lower left, you have a community, the green sphere, spinning. And you're imagining these spheres spinning all together, all as one monad. Down below you, you have the sphere, the orange sphere of production, that all good things, wholesome things are produced through the balance of these prior mentioned spheres: red, blue, purple, green, orange, and then finally yellow truth in the center, the pure truth. But you have this sphere of yellow, the ego, not a negative thing, the authentication, the self, and how the self is utilized and used within this system that resonates out these eras and repeat. And that this sacred purification, these sacred symbols are given to us. Another way that we are heavily manipulated is that none of this is being kept from us. It is being displayed out in the open. And it gets into the procession again, and how things move along. Things are moving about. Things are moving around. Things are moving through. Right? How numbers come out. Somebody accused me years ago of writing this symbol of 88. But if you turn those eights, which I couldn't do at the time because of the software I was using, to inward, you see that it's creating those 4 spheres, right? And that 88 is considered, well, 8 itself is, infinity, and 88 is a symbol for creativity. And to identify that with sort of a dark Nazi type a display is, again, how those negative connotations and reinterpretations take away something so powerful as 88. Like, a lot of cultural groups would look at that 88 and look away like, oh, that means, Nazis, that means white supremacy, and they miss the beauty and the value of that number that is an integral part of their world. And it gets into these symbols, which I have gone through and modified this symbol and put it up because I was thinking about the conical opening, that we are given an opening, we are given a way out, we are given a choice in through this swirling phi symbol that is both swirling out toward us and away from us, and we can get stuck in that. That energy is supposed to, we go through a lot of trust to resonate that energy within us, within our own soul center, our own solar system that goes out and expresses itself. And so you have this division at M in the alphabet with the 26 letters. You have the 20, the 2, and the 7, that every letter counting from A as a 1 all the way to Z as a 26. And then in reverse, the Z having the 1 and the A having the 26 through every single letter adds back up to 27. 26 is complete in itself. And they use this against us. And they use it and they're putting it in technology. And there is no difference between where the technology comes from with the zeros and ones, as you can see, as the matrix symbol behind EPL here. And what that means as far as the manipulation that is occurring within the symbols themselves, the spheres themselves, the right, the left paradigm, and how we're being tricked and how we are being deceived with the 1001 club, this dichotomy where people are doing good on the surface, as above, so below, and behind closed doors and in front of their own despots in their own community, their society, their Hellfire Club, their Bonesmen, all the different names, the Illuminati that they go by, the illumination of this, and then the manipulation of this, the scrolls that are found, the rocks that are found, that are worshipped, instead of the purification that is found in Manad as the only symbol, as they say, the symbol of God, as the intact unit or structure that we are discussing in all the videos down below. So I hope you got something very valuable out of this. And obviously, I'm working on my own and have been posting on EPL since a very strange event happened to me in 2013. So 10 years now, going on the 11th. So there is a lot of writing going on here, and some of it's, automated type writing, autodidactic writing, where information, energies, and teachings are coming to me. And of course, I'm not just writing down anything, but I'm processing. And so these are my thoughts. This is the place where I'm doing this. And this is where I am processing this information. If you would like to donate anything to my work so that I could make it less crude and more palatable, donate here at PayPal or Ko-Fi. Just punch in Stellar Mass 13 at Ko-Fi, PayPal, the EPO fund. Fortunately, you can't click these links, but you can punch them in, and I would very much appreciate that. And then you can reach, not that I have any affiliation with him, but I really do think that Nathaniel Gillis's work is going to become paramount to the next steps in what we're talking about, is the freedom from this dark force, these occulted groups on us, and the bondage that we have been in.